Hi, my name is Al D. I'm the founder of Betterwork Labs. And what I want to do I'm the founder of Betterwork Labs. And what I want to do right now, since we're just starting another new year, is to talk about 8 tips to accelerate your own career growth in this coming year. Every new year is a new opportunity for all of us to figure out what we want to achieve for the year, and then to take steps and make intentional actions towards achieving those goals, whatever they are for our careers. And what I want to do today is to share some of the learnings and best practices that I've gained through navigating my own career, as well as through advising hundreds of people to achieve their career goals. So I'm going to give you 8 tactical tips that you can think about as you begin your planning for career growth this coming year. So quick background, my name's Al D, the founder of Betterwork Labs. Previously spent time at Deloitte and Salesforce and did my undergraduate studies at Boston College, and I have my MBA from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I recently founded Betterwork Labs to work with organizations to develop and grow their most important asset, and that's their people. And we do that through trainings and programs and advising on how to drive growth amongst individuals and team leaders. But today we're talking about career growth. And so to even start that conversation, I want to begin with just how the world of work is changing right now in terms of how we think about our careers and how we think about our jobs and how we think about skills. So what's interesting is that today, the average length of a career is about 60 to 70 years. And what I think really that means for many of us is that long gone are the days where we're spending our entire time at one particular company or one particular organization or in one particular field. We're much more likely to change functions, roles, industries, all careers, anything of that matter. The second thing is that we're much more likely to change jobs. We're much more likely to find other opportunities. We're seeing that now with the great resignation or great reshuffle, however you want to frame it. But we are all much more likely to want to find something new that aligns to our own kind of career goals and career growth. Similarly, on the market side, markets are changing fast, markets are evolving fast. I think COVID-19 is a perfect example of that, just in terms of how quickly organizations had to pivot, how organizations had to find people in new roles, or in some cases, unfortunately, how quickly roles disappeared and other ones sprout up. And then last but not least, the average half-life of a skill is decreasing significantly. And the best way to think about this, if you don't remember half-life decay from science class in high school, is just to think about how long a skill is going to be valid for. And that yearly duration is decreasing significantly. Some of this is due to technology and automation. Some of this is just due to how quickly the landscape is moving. But at the end of the day, the world of work is changing, and it's changing fast. And what we're also seeing is that companies are struggling to in their ability to keep up with this. About 70% of leaders don't believe they have the skills within their company to evolve. About 58% of organizations are redesigning their career models, but only about 8% of those actually feel ready to create the skills for the future. And then 61% are actually just fundamentally changing how they think about career development within their company. And so what that means for actual employees, for people who are not leaders or who are not at the top of the food chain, is a couple of different things. And I really do think and see this as an opportunity. The first thing is that they have the chance to be proactive, to take ownership of their careers. You are all in the driver's seat. This is probably something you've heard at some point in your life. And the rest of this workshop is going to really focus in on how do we actually make that happen. But the other opportunity is the ability to learn and acquire new skills. As we talked about earlier, the world of work is changing, and the half-life of skills is going down significantly. The flip side of that is that it is your opportunity to figure out what skills do you want to develop, and then to use the resources you have to go out to develop them. The third is this around this idea of being agile, learning how to move fast and to iterate. Because the pace of change is so fast and things are moving so quickly, instead of working in a way where you have to figure out every single thing, you can learn and figure out, what do I need to learn today or over the next 3 months or 6 months or 9 months? Similarly, how do I want to learn and grow over the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? And then take small chunks for how going about and achieving it. Many of us have probably been told at some point in our lives, or asked some point in our lives, what do you want to be in 10 years? Or what do you want to do in 10 or 15 years? I don't think for many of us, that is something we intuitively know or understand right now. And I'm here to tell you that's okay. But what we can do is we can be thoughtful and agile about what we want to do in the short term to learn and grow. And certainly if we have some ideas around what we want to do for the future, that's certainly great too. And then last but not least is really being able to embrace a growth mindset. Comes from some of the work from Carol Dweck from Stanford University, but this idea that our abilities are not fixed, in that what we're born with is not what we're stuck with, but rather we have the ability to learn and grow in new things. And if we can do this, both in terms of how we think about our skills, but also as we think about the opportunities we want in our career, I think that's going to set us all up for growth. So how do we actually start the year on the right path? How do we make sure we take advantage of opportunities we have and then actually make progress against them to achieve our career goals? So I want to walk through 8 examples of tips and then give you tactical ways to actually make these happen. So first and foremost, we're going to start with your strengths. And what this really means is that being able to build a foundation for your development by first understanding what you're already doing well. And certainly, if needed, seeking feedback from others to identify other points of view on what your strengths are. Many of you have heard of something like StrengthsFinder, but if you haven't, it's a tool to help you uncover your strengths, and certainly recommend you check it out. But the fundamental principle of StrengthsFinder is that research from Gallup has shown that we're much more likely to be engaged and feel productive in our work when we're actually using our strengths. And so as we think about how we want to develop and grow this year, a really great starting point is actually understanding our strengths and what they are. So a couple options for how to go about doing this if you don't already know. One is to take StrengthsFinder or DISC. Another example is Business Chemistry from Deloitte. These are all different business systems tools to help us understand what we're good at and what we like doing. My recommendation here is to use this as a guidepost. Don't take it as written in stone, but rather informing, hopefully, what you already know about your strengths and how you might want to use those each and every day. The second step is also just to tactically write down what skills you enjoy using in your current role right now. Hopefully there's at least a handful of them of things you already like doing, but that's a really great baseline to have. And then certainly being able to review with your manager any of those project or skills that you have that are strengths that you can either continue to use or use in different ways to continue to not only add value to the company, but also to make you feel more engaged. And really being able to start with your strengths is a really great place to start for career development and career growth. Number 2, this is all about learning the metrics that you're evaluated on. So this is really drilling into being able to understand the performance management process as well as the performance evaluation process, so that you are very clear on how you're going to be evaluated and what success is going to be determined and look like for you. This is really important and really critical, and something that I found from my experience a lot of people overlook. And I think at the end of the day, what it ultimately comes back to is that if you don't actually understand what good looks like or what it takes to be successful, I think it really it inhibits your ability to actually demonstrate that success. If you don't know what the teacher is evaluating you on a test, how do you study, or how do you perform in an accurate way on that specific test? And this is the same way. Now, 2 things to really point out here. The performance management process, that is something that is not decided by you, right? That's something that your organization runs. And so that is all the way from strategic company goal setting, all the way through how employees are compensated or promoted or not. And then within that, the performance evaluation process and practice is a component of that performance management process. And so what you really want to do is, number 1, review that process and understand what it looks like, and then specifically what your role kind of is in that. The second thing is, talk to your manager about what your role is in that process. And particularly with respect to the evaluation piece, get a better understanding from them of what they're really looking for out of you in terms of either better understanding the metrics you're going to be evaluated on, or even better understanding what they need from you to accurately represent you as they evaluate you, or any other supervisor who's overseeing that evaluation process. And then finally, make sure you schedule time throughout the year to review progress that you're making against this. Now, this is really important if you're in a position in your career where you do want to be promoted, or you want to be considered for a new role or something like that. I would say that if you are in this boat, this is table stakes and you must do this, but this is still important even if you're not necessarily going up for promotion or anything like that. Truly being able to understand how you're evaluated within your company and how you're going to be measured against is going to be helpful to you, so that you can better align your own outputs of your work and to make sure that you're tracking in the right way, as well as for you to even consider what your goals are for the year. Number 3 is around this idea of really being able to define your own personal vision of success. And really the best person to do that really is yourself, really figuring out what your goals are, what your vision is, and what your priorities are for you, right? If you think about the performance evaluation process, right, you don't have control over that. That is something that your company sets. And it's important, if you want to succeed in that environment, for you to pay attention to that and for you to monitor that. But if you just solely metric yourself to external measures, I think you'll find that you'll probably come up a little short in the fulfillment department, because at the end of the day, you need to live the life that you want to live. And that's not always going to align with what your company defines in terms of what success looks like for them. So as you think about what these things are, a couple things you can kind of think about. Number 1, write out your 5-year career resume. What I mean by this is think of 5 years ahead. Write down the bullets of things that you think you want to have accomplished by then, right? And you could span this across work, you can span this across life, but 5 years from now, what do you want on there? What do you want on that milestone tracker? And start to think about what those things are. And if you have a hard time doing that, that's okay. The point of the exercise is not to have it complete, but to really help you think and be intentional about and really define for yourself of what good looks like. The second is what I call conduct a vision, mission, and values assessment. And this literally is writing out what is your vision, what is your mission, and what are your key values that you want to use to make decisions as you think about making career actions that you want to take. I'll link a exercise to this at the end, because I think this will be helpful, but being able to do this can provide a lot of clarity. And then certainly, last but not least, being able to interview people who you admire to really understand what their definition of success looks like for them. The goal out of this exercise is not necessarily to copy them, although if you do find something in there that they're doing that you really like, by all means, you should take it on. But more than anything, it really is meant to help you understand their thought process for how they're going about defining their own vision of success, how they're thinking about their mission, their vision, and their values. That way you can also think about it in a way that makes sense to you. Okay, number 4, reach for your own opportunities. This is all about making sure that you're proactively identifying the opportunities that you want to take to progress and grow in your career. As I said earlier, it is on you to own your career. And what that means is that while you will rely on others to help you grow in your career or to take on opportunities or to get access to things that you cannot get access on your own, at the end of the day, it really does start with you. And even in the career conversation process, when you're talking with your manager about your own personal goals and vision, while your manager is going to help and support you, you still have to be the one who comes to the table and says, this is what I think I want, or taking the action to take what you want and making it actually real. So what does taking ownership actually mean, or what does reaching for your own opportunities actually mean? Well, here are 3 tactical examples I can give to actually make this happen. So let's say that you want to develop a certain skill, or you want to gain more experience in a certain skill. Here are 3 things that you can do to actually go and do that on your own by being proactive and really owning your career. 1 is taking on a cross-functional project that spans across many teams that aligns to the skill that you're building. Raise your hand, figure out what it is, go and raise your hand and volunteer to do it. The second thing you can do is to tackle a team initiative, right? If you're on a team, you're working with other people, maybe there's something on your team that is going to strengthen the way that you collaborate or the way in which you all engage with one another. Many of us are working in hybrid environments, so I'm sure there are plenty of opportunities, but raise your hand and say, I want to do this project, and align it to the skill that you're trying to build. And then that third thing is just ask for a project that no one's doing. If your team has 3 key priorities, but there's maybe priority 4, 5, or 6, where it is kind of in the nice to have, but no one is paying attention to it, maybe there's something there that you can take on that no one else is doing that you know is going to add value, but perhaps is being overlooked. And that could be another way to do it. The key thing here is being proactive and taking ownership. Certainly, you don't want to get in a situation where you're doing something that is not of strategic value to your team, but being able to take that ownership and come to the table and say, hey, I think I should do this. Here's the reason why I want to do it. What do you think? I think you'll find that your manager will be pretty happy with that. Number 5, keep track of what you do and learn. And this is all about making sure you have mechanisms in place to capture the great outputs of your work, as well as to be self-aware about how much you're actually doing each and every day. I think it's really easy to get really busy in execution mode and to forget about all the amazing things that you can do at any given point in time. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're actually tracking the things that you're doing on a regular basis. And that way, you can share them with your team, with your manager, with other cross-functional teams. Number one, for knowledge sharing, because maybe they might be able to learn from it. But number two, so that they're aware also of what, as well as to how you're developing and growing and how you're making contributions to the team. So 3 ways to do this. First, build a Google Doc of all your projects. List them out, put them in a Google Doc, just say, here's what I'm doing, here's the due date, here's the progress I'm making, and adding some links. Keep track of that because it's going to serve 2 purposes. One, for you to actually log and make sure you understand everything that you're working on at any given time. 2, for your manager or your team, so they can also see in case they need to come in and help you, or also to be able for them to see, wow, so-and-so is working on so many things. The second thing you want to do is to do quarterly or biannual reviews. So every quarter, at the end of the quarter, revisit your tracker and just to kind of measure the progress you're making, the impact you're making, what you're learning from that process. Maybe even go through a couple of reflection exercises or questions of saying, what did I do this quarter? What did I learn? What was the impact I made? And what do I want to do next quarter? If you do that once a quarter, I think you'll be surprised to find how much you learn, how much you are impact you're making. And then finally, we'll talk about a career development plan in a little bit, but being able to tie this into your career development plan, I think is going to be really important and really helpful to helping you see how you're progressing towards some of your own career goals. At the end of the day, if we can tie the things we're doing to how we're thinking about our career growth, not only is it going to help us make progress towards those goals, but it's also going to make us feel better about the direction that we're going in. Okay, number 6, find some advisors. Certainly, as I said already many times, you're responsible for your own career development and your own career growth, but having your team to cheer you on and advise you can also make a huge difference. I like to say that career development is a team sport, not an individual one. So think more like basketball or football versus golf. And making sure that you have other people on your team who are there to support you, to provide feedback, to cheer you on, and in some cases to facilitate the opportunities that you couldn't get elsewhere is really, really critical. So how do you do that? 1, identify mentors and sponsors. And in that, you actually need to know the difference between the two. A mentor is someone who has more experience than you, who can give you open and honest guidance and feedback about anything that you need feedback or guidance on, particularly relative to where you are in your career or anything that you're working on at any given time. They typically tend to be someone who's a couple more years senior than you, but they not always. And in addition to that, there is a sense of trust that you can tell them and be honest with them. A sponsor is someone who's in a formal position of leadership as well as influence and power. This means that they can open doors for you and they can formally get you into rooms and advocate for you in the rooms that you cannot be in, so you can get specific career opportunities like new roles, access to personal development, other types of things like that. So making sure you understand the difference between the two and that you have the right set of mentors and sponsors based on your career development and growth is really, really important. Certainly look for peers in your industry. Look for other people who are at other companies who you can learn from, other peers from your alumni group, other people in your industry that you could connect with and get feedback on and learn with. And then finally, ask for skip level meetings. If you're not familiar with what these are meetings with your manager's manager. And this will certainly vary depending on the culture of your company, but being able to get some exposure to someone who's a little bit higher up than you, but still within your chain of command, and to use that time to learn about their priorities, but also to share what you're working on, I think will strengthen not only your understanding of what you're doing, as well as it might actually help you find some of those mentors and sponsors that you need to develop in your career. 7, it's all about building a plan. Whatever template you want to use, but having a plan of some sort that you can continuously monitor and review to guide your growth and learning is critical to actually growing and learning. And all my advice here is, number 1 is actually take the time to go and build some sort of plan. And we can certainly talk about what that might look like or how to go about doing it, and certainly be able to share with some templates and how to do that. The second thing is to have a conversation with your manager around the plan and really walk them through what you're thinking and what your thought process is. If you're unsure of certain things, make sure you ask for feedback or further clarification. And then finally, ask for feedback on it and continue to iterate and evolve it. The biggest mistake I see people make with these plans, and not just people, but organizations, is that they use it as a check the box exercise. So it gets done once and then it kind of spends the rest of the year sitting on the proverbial kind of shelf collecting dust. Anything you can do to prevent that in terms of regularly monitoring it, updating it, sharing feedback on it, scheduling time to talk to your manager as a follow-up to it is going to be helpful to your growth. And then finally, ask for feedback. This is one of the hardest lessons I think people have to learn, is that you have to go and sometimes get your own feedback. And the feedback's going to be really helpful to your own learning and growth. The ability for you to go and get feedback is going to be the thing that helps drive those learning loops you need to keep growing and progressing in your career. And so being able to proactively get feedback from your peers, your colleagues, your manager is really going to be helpful to you. So number one, how do we do this? Proactively reach out for feedback. Pick a group of people that you work with, think about a project you're working on, and go and talk to those people to figure out, what am I doing well? Where can I improve? And being able to get specific feedback and specific actions that you can then use to get better is really what you're looking for. Not surface level things, not you're doing great, but actually specific things in context of the work. That's really something that's important. The second thing you want to do is, when you get that, is take the time to review that with your manager. We all can't learn on our own in our silos. Having someone else is really helpful. And part of your manager's job is to help you learn so you can be more productive, engaged, and produce better work outputs. And so being able to review that feedback with them, to have them give you feedback on that feedback or to talk about that feedback, will be critical and helpful to getting those learning loops so you can get even better the next time. And then finally, if you want to get feedback, one way to get that feedback is to continuously give feedback to others, to start going out of your way to proactively give feedback to others in a way that is in context and useful and helpful to their learning and growth. That'll do two things. Number one, I think they're going to appreciate it, and it's going to help you build trust in the relationship you have for them. But I think what you're also going to find is that they're going to actually be more willing to give you feedback as you need it to yourself to learn and grow. Okay, so again, start with your strengths, learn the metrics you're evaluated on, reframe career success, reach for your own opportunities, keep track of what you do and learn, find some advisors, build a plan, and ask for feedback. These are the 8 steps that you can take this year to drive career growth. And hopefully, I also gave you some tactical things you can actually go and try on to bring these 8 tips to life for yourself. So with that, thank you again for joining and for listening. And if you have any questions about anything I just shared, or you want to learn more about what we do at Betterwork Labs, if you want to bring us in to work with your teams or your employees to further their own growth and development, make sure to check us out at betterworklabs.com or contact me at al@betterworklabs.com. Thank you.